Welcome to Beyond the Margins. I'm your host, Jason, and I've got back with me our friend Chavisa. Chavisa, I'm so glad you're here. We are all aware of the current situation in my country and the current dumpster fire we're in. And it's the perfect time to bring somebody like Chavisa on again because we need somebody who can guide us, who can give us a different way of viewing things and maybe give us a little support and help us understand how to take care of ourselves. And that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to do a little bit different. Normally I just have my guests say what they've got to say, but Shavis and I have gotten to know each other a little bit better. So we're just going to talk today. And I guess we can start with just that, man, Shavisa, it is a dumpster fire and it's confusing and it's scary. And the only thing I can keep telling people right now is there's more of us than there are of them. We just have to realize that. But it's a lot. And I know that there's trauma happening, even just in the words that are being written and said, but I don't know I guess I don't even know how to protect myself from it, really. And it does damage me too. So what kind of advice did you give me? I feel it. I know some people know, I've shared with some people, I was pretty burned out at the beginning of this month and I had to take some time off. And that was okay, but it's not the best way to go about it. I need to be able to take care of myself better than that. But I can't avoid all of the crap.
No, you can't avoid all the crap. So let's have a good conversation about how we can really take good care of ourselves. So I'm your Canadian neighbor. Okay. And as far as I can tell in the context that I live in, that the Southern leadership definitely impacts Canadians and has definitely produced a very strong feeling here as well. So the words I would use to describe what's happening is collective trauma for many of us. Not all of us, but for those of us who experience this as a trauma, what we're experiencing is a collective trauma. So I think that's a good space to talk, is just sort of gathering some languaging around it so that we can take those kind of signifiers like the word collective trauma and use them so that we can better articulate where we're at and also better be able to communicate and then connect with others. So I work as a trauma-informed coaching consultant, and I work globally with folks in the English-speaking world. So I work with lots of Americans and I work with lots of Canadians, and this is the work that I absolutely love. So perhaps I'll start with a definition of the word trauma. So trauma can be what people think of as a single event. So let's say earthquake, or let's say a car accident, or let's say random violence. But trauma is also and can be an extended experience. So that could be something like a famine. That could be something like a 4-year government. That could be something like being the neighbor of a 4-year government. And so when we understand that trauma can be long and extended, then in the context that I traditionally work in, it's around gender-based violence. So some people experience gender-based violence as a single incident, and others experience gender-based violence as a long, extended, and often invisibilized kind of abuse. And so I work with folks who are trying to increase their wellness and safety. And so I just want to suggest to you, because you spoke about burnout, that when we look after ourselves, when we take exquisite care of ourselves, this is a space of resistance, and when we cultivate looking after ourselves and understand that when we nurture and ensure health and care for ourselves, especially when there's a lot of externalized force on us, this is a site of beautiful resistance. And so there's a nice space to do interventions there. And and really understand, when you befriend yourself, when you take care of yourself through adversity, what you're doing is not a self-inclined act. It can be understood to be a political act. And in fact, we've seen that in the civil rights movement, where to look after oneself is an act of resistance.
Yeah, and actually, it's funny that you say that because one of my best guests and a very, very good friend of mine, my coach at Teacher America, Sierra Owens, one of the things we last talked about was that first she said women of color, but I believe she followed that up with women in general, think they have to earn rest. And she said, that's not right. You don't have to earn rest. Just being human is your earning rest, you know? And so what you were seeing there, self-care is resistance. It was the same thing. It was resting is a form of resistance
And
to,
better yet, the body heals when it's sleeping. So resting, where your one eye's open and you're listening to a podcast or scrolling,
yes, yes,
if we even go unpack that further and say to sleep well, to sleep, a number of sustained hours, that's where we restore ourselves. We restore our bodies, our spirits, our mental wellness. And so the gift of sleep is immense.
yeah. Well, it's amazing the little things that you're right are resistance, like taking care of yourself. Because if I take care of myself, I can take care of other people. And as you know, as a lot of my friends have come to know, that's all I really want to do. All I want to do is take care of people. And I tell people I don't even like people. I love them anyway. But a lot of people are not very likable, so I try to avoid them. But at the same time, I want everybody to be well and safe and have what they be who they are. That's our whole thing is we love you for who you are, not who the world wants you to be. I don't have to. I don't have to be your friend to care about you. I just have to. You just have to be a human for me to care about you, and for me to do that, I have to take care of myself. But how do I not get? This is where I struggle. How do I not get caught up to where I forget to take care of myself? I mean, do I have to have it an alarm set? Do I have to have a calendar? What do I do?
Well, so what you're talking about is tools. Like, what are the tools that you can implement to support the behavior of self-care? Now,
Yes.
I just want to clarify, when I talk about self-care, I'm talking about holistic, fundamental self-care. I'm not talking about bubble baths and pedicures. I'm
Right,
talking
right.
about cellular care for your body as an exquisite, alive being on earth. We've been gifted these vessels to have our lifespan in, and how do we look after ourselves molecularly, so that we can do the work that we need to do while we're here on earth.
Right. Well, and funny enough, it's funny you said cellular. It's brought this right up into my head. Another guest of mine that just we just released last week, and I'm hoping to get them back on as well as Blaze Hall, who does somatic therapy,
Mhm.
which is something I'd never even heard of before. So for you to make that connection was really cool to me. Thank you.
So that's a lot of what I do, is help people get grounded in their bodies, because when we're experiencing trauma, it sits in our bodies. And so part of how what's needed for trauma is that we develop a container for safety and trust. So you work with developing a safe space with a safe person and having trust with them. And so for some people, that will take 2 hours to develop. And some people, that will take 6 years to develop. And we just allow that container of safety and trust to build up. And then from there, people can start to do the work of starting to digest and metabolize the trauma that they've experienced. And so as we get safe both in partnership with another person who we're doing this trauma recovery work with. Also, we're developing a safety of what it feels like to be present in our bodies. There's so many spaces for us to evacuate and so many spaces for us to leave our bodies. And for some people, that's dissociation. And for some people, that's eating too much popcorn on the couch. And for some people, that's having another drink. And for some people, that's using drugs. And for other people, it's, there's a whole variety of ways that humans have excelled at not being present. And so it's a real art to take the time, again, to befriend ourselves, to figure out what it feels like to be present in the body. Of course, so I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychotherapist. I serve as a trauma-informed coaching consultant. And I work often somatically with people because the invitation is to come into the body again. And when we come into our bodies, of course, there's these feeling states that roll through. So probably what you're getting presently is a lot of feeling states around anger and despair and scaredness and grieving, perhaps, as that may be starting to emerge. But how do we, for ourselves, start to befriend those feelings? They're uncomfortable feelings. It's not like when we go to school, we do maybe in grade 5, you learn how to, do the green light system of green, orange, red, where you're like, I hit my trigger on red. But do we learn that all the way through the school system, where we learn to befriend anger, or how we could do healthy anger? Or
no, we learn to suppress it.
Mm-hmm. So, and then we learn all these other managing strategies, but it's a real art to, and I'm starting to realize this more and more, like the task of being an adult human is to learn to befriend the big feelings, because it takes decades to sometimes learn these big feelings. So what does it feel like to sit with sorrow? What does it feel like to sit with rage? And how to befriend. And so partly I think it's just learning to name them, like you put your hand on your heart and you say to yourself, instead of not wanting those feelings to occur, say to yourself, hello, rage, woo, it's big in here, right? It's fiery and big and there's huge energy happening, hello. And we just start to kind of be able to sit with it a little longer than we have in the past. And over time, we just develop more and more capacity.
That is difficult. It's especially so for me, my whole life. I keep telling everybody someday I'll tell my story, but I'm not ready to do it yet. It's much easier for me to help other people tell their stories, but I didn't have a great life from childhood on until my kids, really, but I always had joy. Always. I was always happy. I mean, yes, things hurt. I was sad sometimes. I was mad sometimes, but I was always a lot of joy because it's just who I am. I see the beauty in everything. And so for me, this experience being with anger as much as I have been, because I've been learning the terrible things that people do to each other, it's been very hard. It's been very hurtful and I don't like it, but I can't walk away from it because this is important. And that's what I keep saying. And that's what other people keep telling me. So I think I'm right. But I mean, I can't, if I could crawl back into the cocoon I used to live in where I didn't know this stuff, I would go today. It was so much nicer in there. But the experience I know I'm getting, and I know that I need it, and I know that it's necessary. I don't know that I want it, but it's necessary. But does there come a point where it's less painful? It's less of a struggle to get through it?
Absolutely. So
That's
I just want to say, especially in your context, so that this conversation is not misconstrued. There's the inner reality of how we look after ourselves. And this is what I'm speaking about right now, learning to befriend the
Right.
feelings. And then there's the external, right? Like, but both are needed. And so
Yeah.
I don't want to have listeners misconstrue that if you just take care of the inner, that's sufficient. In this situation that we're just talking about today, both are, I would say, very useful. So we'll talk about both of them, but we'll just break them down.
It
So
just feels like they cross over so
oh,
much.
they absolutely do. But I just want to make sure that when listeners hear that they're not thinking, oh, just self care during this 4 year period will
Oh
be
yeah.
sufficient. That's not what I'm talking about.
No, no,
So,
no, no, no. You're right. Go on, go on.
but part of what I want to say is like, so when we have a big feeling, let's say rage or anger, and we learn to be with it, sit with it, befriend it, what happens is it's a huge learning curve, right? You break it down and your exposure is like whatever, let's say 2 seconds longer this time and 6 seconds longer the next time and 10 seconds longer the next time. And over time, it becomes, you can sit with it in a bigger way because you've developed a sort of, it's like muscle building. You're developing a skill set. But what also happens is on the back end, once you've started to befriend these big feelings, is that you develop almost a superpower, right? So then you're like, oh, hello. And these feelings that used to feel like they were the enormity of the whole world and taking over the whole world, now they metabolize through in a much shorter period of time. And so it's like your capacity to digest and metabolize increases. And then you realize, oh, like what used to cause a feeling state that used to cause indigestion that would ruin your tummy for 4 months. Now it only takes 2 months. Now it only takes 2 weeks. Now it only takes 7 days. Now it only takes 4 days. Now it only takes 2 days. Now, oh, I worked through that indigestion in a day and a half, and then a day, and then half a day.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the metabolism, because I'm always amazed, like when I sit with huge feelings, and I think, and the feeling state is saying to me, so like, let's say, talk about, I'll give you an example of like dealing with utter sorrow or despair. And I just think, oh, well, like my mind says, oh, it's over. I can't function anymore. I'm completely overwhelmed and despair. And then I lie down and I think, oh, I'll probably get up in 2 weeks from now. I just can't do this. And then I lie down, sob my heart out. The huge feeling comes through like a wave. And then like 40 minutes later, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go again. And I was like, oh, it felt like the feeling felt like it was going to be a washout for 2 weeks. I didn't feel like I'd get out of that bed for 2 weeks. Like,
Yeah.
but the truth is, the feeling just came rushing through in a safe, contained way. And then 40 minutes later, I'm like, okay, I could just go wash my face and I'm ready to do like the next necessary thing. And this is where I was talking about the other side. Now it's like, and now what do we need to do in the outer world now that we look after the
Yes.
inner world?
So, I mean, and of course, we're not no, but no group, no community is monolith. So when I say we, of course, I'm only really speaking about myself. But for somebody like me, emotions have always been very difficult because I don't perceive them or process them like other people do. Um, I for a long time I didn't think I had any, like not like a sociopath didn't have any, like they all felt the same to me. There weren't separate things. Like even now when I'm happy, angry, or sad, I tear up and I have a hard time understanding why. Luckily, I'm surrounded by wonderful people who've tried to help me to understand these things, but they were always tapped down. And a lot of that was being Gen X. We were always told, "Oh, keep your feelings to yourself. You got to keep that inside. You can't show that." So that had a lot to do with it too. But because I think because of that and my neurodivergence, it's made it difficult for me to separate and identify. And then you add in my empathy, which is torturous at times because I'm feeling emotions from other people that I don't even understand. And so when you talk about sorrow, despair, and rage. What I feel is sad and angry. I don't know how to scale them. I don't ever feel like I am more angry or more, but then I know how I react because if I get what people may experience as rage and I just think as anger, my outer actions are very different. Because if I reach a point where you might call it rage, now I'm going to try and stop something or someone from doing something. Whereas before I might have just been like, oh, they shouldn't do that, you know? So how how might you guide somebody that has difficulty even understanding their own emotions to be able to sit with them so that they can heal from the inside?
Well, what I'm hearing you say, and this is my intuitive response to you in a fluid conversation, is around we live in vessels. These are our bodily vessels, and there are feeling states that emerge. Whether or not they're named accurately with labels or signifiers, it doesn't change the fact that inside our vessel, we have feeling states that we are invited to learn to be and work with. And so it's like whatever is there is what you get, right? So that's what you get to work with.
Okay. So I don't have to name it.
Well, I'm saying to you, what you're being invited to do, my take on it, what you're being invited to is just befriend the feeling states that are coming through. That's what we're all working
Okay.
on.
Okay.
I mean, the Buddhists talk about it beautifully, and they have a meditation called Big Sky Mind. And Big Sky Mind says, we do not say, oh, I want blue skies. Oh, I want super gray skies. Oh, I want storm clouds. I want white little wispy clouds. We don't choose. The sky is how the sky is. The sky is doing what the sky is doing. And we have the opportunity to allow it to be what it is. And that's the same with our feeling states.
I
It's
think
not
I
all going to be blue skies. It's not all going to be gray storm clouds. We get what we get, and we can learn to befriend what it is. And part of the befriending is where we empower ourselves. Part of the befriending is where we develop a capacity to sit with and be with. And part of befriending is allows us that the next time the sky gets blue, or the next time the sky gets gray, or the next time the sky fills with white clouds, then it's not as um, daunting or challenging, because you're like, oh, I've seen this happen before. And over time, it dissipates and shifts. Like, again, it's this lack of attachment and just allowing things to shift. I mean, as a Canadian neighbor impacted by your current leadership, I hear words on the street, and it's fascinating. Every time I go out in public, there is a conversation going on about my southern neighbors. Until the earthquake happened a few days ago, then there was a nice reprieve, and then you heard people talking about the earthquake for a day. But now we're back to the southern neighbors. But the thing is, the way I'm hearing people frame it is like this is a 4-year suffering, and that, um, and but already the way that they're projecting in the language that I'm hearing in the public sphere is that they're projecting it as a 4-year suffering and then a shift, right? And
it'll be
4
a
years is a
show.
long
Yeah.
time.
Oh, it's not going to be a good show. There's and it's only speculation, but there are a lot of um, there are a lot of words coming out and things coming out and conversations across oceans that are being had where they're not even hiding their intent anymore. So I know that the more I talk, the bigger the target of my pivot gets, but at the same time, I can't be voiceless. I can't let not only the groups that have gotten to know, but me and people like me because they want us too, and it's the parallels I'm seeing and the pattern recognition, and it's ugly, but I do want to go back to what you were saying about um, just kind of getting an invitation to get to know what's going on inside of you. And I feel that. And I think the way that I relate to that actually is that when I meditate, and then in fact, when I teach other people to meditate, I always tell them how I do it. And for me, it was I would lie there with my eyes closed and I would picture an old, a slide projector, which of course, half of my viewers won't know what that is. Google it. A slide projector, and I would not pick the slide. I would say, okay, show me the slide that I need to see. And a slide would come out and I'd see it. And that would be the thing that I would meditate on. I didn't put myself consciously in it. I just gave myself this symbol that I understood and let my subconscious choose what I was going to focus on. And sometimes it was a problem, something I needed to work on. And sometimes it was seeing that I had done something good, or that something was positive in the path that I was on. But I think that's how I relate to that, what you were saying, that I think maybe that was my way of visiting those emotions so that I could understand them, because I do uh, typically I do rebound very quickly because I understand that things are temporary, and if I keep pushing through to do the right thing, the right things will win overall, no matter what it is, whether it's the situation we're in right here below you right now, or if it's something that I'm working toward that's just positive for the sake of being positive. If I keep doing it, I know I'll get there. So the little bumps in the road don't knock me out.
So when I work with folks doing trauma informed coaching, a great way space for me to start with folks is to identify what their values and ethics are, right? Because when we're in line with our values and ethics, then we have a lot more energy to do the big work, and right now requires big work. And also, when our values and ethics are in alignment with our actions and our behaviors, then it's almost like you hit into an energy stream and you have way more energy and capacity also to withstand uh, pressure and adversity, but also to just have an internal drive to do the task that you're taking on. But part of what I want to talk about today in terms of like collective trauma and spaces where people can do really thoughtful interventions is the self-care. So we talked about safe, big feeling expression, like
Yes.
if you can go out, I think for me, medicine is nature. Those trees have been around a lot longer than our lifespans. They've weathered many storms and they are still standing. So I think there's a lot to be said for getting yourself into nature and getting yourself grounded. As the spring comes on in summer, like take off your shoes, walk
Mm-hmm.
barefoot, garden, put your hands in the dirt. Like we need to connect to the earth because the earth is much bigger and to my mind, a much more successful system than human systems. Like
Yes.
the trees don't require a bureaucratic process to change seasonally. They know how to do it, and it's natural. So, the natural systems are so much more eloquent and um, integrated and pronounced than what humans and human systems are capable of. So I think there's a real space for receiving medicine and healing from just connecting to the earth. And especially
Yes.
if you have like water near you that's clean and safe, like connect to water again. And there's big medicine and energy in water and nature and getting yourself really connected. Gardening is also really beautiful because you get in touch with seasonality and reality with what it is to be alive, especially with food security issues growing and
Yes.
climate issues growing. Like here, I have a garden in front of my building in the middle of town. And what that means is I plant 4 times the amount of food I need because I know people are going to help themselves. But I also know that when I'm out there gardening, people talk to me, they chat to me, they compliment me. And also, they've been observing and taking delight in this garden every time they pass it in the middle of town. So what these kind of little interventions do is they're good for the environment, they're good for food security, but they're also good for community building. And what we need right now is community building with
That's right.
like-minded folks with again the same shared values and ethics. And it doesn't have to mean we share every value and ethic. We can have differences and we can hold space for difference and we need to hold space for difference. But community building is a beautiful thing. So I had this idea earlier today to speak to you about around like what is it like to bring together folks in your community and start a book club, like read a book once a month. But then I was thinking, okay, so the way trauma works is that often um, perhaps it's hard to read on your own. Not always, but for some folks, it'll be hard to read on your own. So I was thinking, actually, what would be really beautiful is to take that book club to the next level and co-read together, right? It's like, hey,
Mm.
let's read a chapter of this book together. We'll do it like page at a time. We'll all take turns reading to each other. That's soothing for your parasympathetic nervous system. That's
Yeah.
skill building in terms of public speaking. That's community building. That's an opportunity to discuss and unpack and share and see um, where your intersecting perspectives lie and where we can kind of come up with a new approach. So I think there's spectacular authors out there. There are solutions and there are beautiful ways to really deeply connect with people. So how to facilitate that, especially at this time when people are feeling worn down and depleted, like actually to bring together people to co-garden, to do a articulated book club. Those are sites of resistance, those are beautiful interventions that arguably cost very little and have a really good, beautiful ripple out trajectory.
Yeah, we're gonna, I'm meeting with the board that has agreed to work with me for building up the the nonprofit. I'm meeting with them tomorrow actually, and I'm going to discuss some other ideas with them. I'm very, very happy to see that we have a couple people that are looking to collaborate with us. I have to talk to them about that before we get into that more. I also am so happy to see that our friend Chavisa has been an outstanding guest, and she's always so willing to be around whenever we can get together. And I'm so happy to see you again. But I love those ideas, and I need those ideas, and I wish people would message me on Facebook or YouTube or my email and say, hey, we've got this idea that might help out with community. Why don't, because I have ideas and we're getting to the point where we're going to start being able to implement things. But one like this, like a book club like that, we could do that online. That doesn't have to be, expensive for anybody. We could, in fact, I'll talk to my person that is mostly involved with IT about if we could set something up like that where we could meet through the website or something like that.
Zoom.
Yeah, well, it would be super easy, super inexpensive, and yeah, we could co-read. We could get quite a few people in there to do it. That would be fun. It would be a good community building. You're right. So I thank you. That was really cool. I never thought about that actually. And I wish that this was easier to throw together, and I feel like, so here's what I want to do. And I talked to you about this before we started. Here's what I want to do is I want to do a Facebook live. And I talked to Chavisa about it. Chavisa, I know you said you were okay with that. In fact, you said, that's great. Why don't we do it now? And I said, oh, wait, I'm not set up yet. So it's really my fault, guys, that we're not doing it right now. But what I am going to do is I'm going to cut this one as quick as I can and release it so that everybody will hear that we're going to do this. We will pick a date shortly after we get off the air. We'll pick a date and then we'll do it, because I think that me being here with you and talking is fun, but I think having them have the opportunity to ask us questions too would be even better. I think it would. I always feel like it's, like you're telling me stuff and I hear you and I feel like we're on the same page, and I might say it different than you do, but at the same time, I'm like, how many other people would hear it different if they could ask a question, and well, I'm going to stop babbling. But thank you for agreeing. Thank you for being here. And I don't want to cut you off, but I think my wife's going to get mad if I don't get off of here soon. So she does not. She is so patient with everything that I do at this, because it takes, well, how much it takes to do stuff like this. Okay, Chavisa, before I forget, what is your contact info so that when people are desperately trying to get to you, that they can find you?
People are more than welcome to contact me at www.themothercorp.com. So it's themothercorp.com. So the Mother Corp. And my email is themothercorp@proton, proton.me, which is a secure email. And you could also send a note on my website. I also have, for folks who want to sign up for my newsletter, there's a free guide on self-care if folks are interested in that. And originally what I had wanted to do was name that self-care through adversity. So just so you understand, it's like, again, that holistic self-care tips in terms of how to befriend. So if that's of use to you, please sign up for my newsletter, and otherwise feel free to reach out. My service is always confidential and one-on-one, personalized to folks' exact situations. So I offer folks a free consultation call just to make sure that we're a good fit and that I can be of good service to them. And so feel free to reach out if you'd like one of those.
So, Chavisa, thank you again so much. And to all of our viewers, to our listeners, to our family on Facebook, and the subscribers as we build up our YouTube, guys, we love you all for who you are, not who the world wants you to be. And we want to start building a safer place. We love you all. Bye-bye.